On this episode of the Christian Business Mentor Podcast, I'm excited. We're doing something new. We have a Q&A. We have our brother Stan, who is actually in the studio, and I asked him, I said, hey, what are some specific questions that we could do some live coaching on where I could support you in growing your business and growing your life and really developing from a high performance perspective to the next level. And so, man, I'm excited to have you here, and we'll dive into a couple questions that you have. And let's dive in.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. What's on your mind, man? What's a challenge that you're having in life where you feel like you're getting stuck?
What are key elements of a healthy balance between family and work life, and how do you prioritize and maintain that balance in your daily routine?
Yeah. So that's something that I think most guys have a hard time with, is figuring out how to grind professionally, but still make sure we're taking care of our family, which is the most important thing, right? We have the four pillars: faith, family, fitness, and finances always last. Now, there's no such thing as perfect work-life balance. Mm-hmm. We can say there's work-life harmony. Okay. So not work-life balance. You're never going to be perfectly balanced. You're not going to work exactly 8 hours and dedicate exactly 8 hours to every other area of your life. Right. So no such thing as perfect balance, but there can be great harmony where they work together very well. And so for me, what I'm doing is I'm very intentional. So I'll spend time getting really clear on my schedule for the week. So like yesterday, I spent time really building out the ideal calendar. I pulled up my calendar and I time blocked all of the areas that I want to spend my week on, whether that be family time invested for my learning, time to the business, time for God. I plotted those out on the calendar. And so the best way to do that is to be intentional. So, hey, what hours am I going to grind it out? When am I going to stop work? And when am I going to shift to family? And then how do I be fully present when I'm with my family? Right. So for me, I have a deadline. My goal is to be done with work by about 5 or 5:30, sometimes 6. But when I'm done, I fully shift over into family mode. I'm not working anymore. I do not work at all once I go home.
Okay.
I'm fully involved with the family, so they get my 3 hours, 4 hours of time, right? And then, I can dedicate 8, 9, 10 hours to work, like fully involved in work, and I have clear intention and clear time with my family. And then I'm also very intentional with where I spend my mornings. So this morning I had breakfast with the kids, right? So I made sure I dedicated time to fill their cups up, and then I can go grind it out at work, and then I get to fill their cups up at night. And sometimes there's seasons where I have to work longer. I got to put in 10, 12, 13-hour days, right, when we have some events going. So I become even more intentional where I make sure I get time in the morning with them. I might wake them up early just to go connect with them.
Nice. And
fill their cup up, because I might not see them the entire night before they go to bed for some of our events.
Right.
So I literally just make sure they get time with me. And so that, for me, that really special time fills their cup up enough where it creates a place of harmony for our entire family.
Mm-hmm. It's not as critical that you do it every day. Just when you are there, be very intentional, be hyper focused on them, and not, mixing work and family.
That's not a good mix from my experience.
Right.
Yep. When I'm at home, I make sure I'm present with them. And I'm not perfect at it. Right. My wife will call me out on it. Hey, put your phone away. I'm like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
So I yeah, totally. So I'm not perfect at it. However, yeah, man, have some clear boundaries with work and with your personal life.
Nice. What strategies can help me stay consistent and intentional with my spiritual goals, especially when motivation is low?
Couple things here. Number one is I would have a mentor, a spiritual mentor. So I have a spiritual mentor, and that's my pastor. So we have regular coaching calls. So you could have a lunch, a breakfast with a spiritual mentor. So that's fantastic. That's a great way to have some accountability and to stay intentional with your spiritual time. The second thing is I would make sure I'm dedicating specific times to stay in the Word, and building a routine out of it. So I have a specific, so in the morning I wake up, one of the first things I do is I grab my coffee and I go sit down and I read the Bible. Every single morning. I rarely let myself get distracted with other things. So I would challenge you to go have a specific morning routine where you read the Bible in the same spot, the same way, the same time every day. That's the best way that I've found.
Right.
And then the third thing would be having somebody that you're actually developing with. So maybe joining a peer group or a Bible study where you have a weekly meeting where you're diving into the Word. So those things, if you do all three of those, your spiritual life will definitely level up. But we need accountability, or else we're going to do really well some months and then we're going to fall off hard some other months when life gets busy.
Yeah, it does. What might be causing me to struggle with staying intentional in my relationship with my spouse, and how can I address it?
Explain a little bit more. What are you struggling with?
Yeah. So for me, it's like taking her out on a date, right? And then not being intentional with maybe actually spending time with her, maybe being on my phone, talking about things that are happening in my life versus, asking her, questions, and making her feel heard. That's the big thing for me right now.
Yeah. Well, I think what's important to check in with is how much do you care?
Yeah.
How much do you care about her, right? And so do you care more about these other things than you do about making her feel seen and known and heard, right? And I think that's a good check-in, because sometimes we think we're leaning into a relationship. We have conflicting intentions. So as human beings, we all have conflicting intentions. And so what that means is you might have an underlying aim or intention to love your wife and to give her time. Right. But then you might have another underlying intention to seek comfort. Maybe it's sedating on your phone. Maybe it's selfishness where you're desiring to get what you want out. And if you're not getting what you want out, you might disconnect. Yeah. So you might have underlying intentions. So if you're not doing what you believe you should be doing, there's probably some other intention driving you. And so we have to go and reflect. And the way I reflect on that's through journaling, through prayer and journaling. I'll spend time and I'll actually journal, like, what are some underlying beliefs or intentions that are causing me to not produce the results I want? And see if you can uncover them. Because if you can uncover them, you can shift them. But as long as they're unconscious in the background and you don't know they're operating you, they're going to run your whole life.
You just won't realize it.
You won't realize it. Exactly. And they're going to keep running, and you're going to keep struggling being present and struggling being intentional with your wife. And so I think journaling and processing through, like, what else is more important than my care for my wife? But even before that, how much do I care? I say I love her, but love is an action. Love isn't just a feeling. Love's an action. So do you truly love her to the point where you're sacrificing yourself in the pursuit of your wife, right? Where you're sacrificing what your needs and your wants, right? Dying to yourself so that you can be the man that your wife needs. And so that's what this game of marriage is all about, is how do I die to myself and start to live for the relationship, right? To improve the relationship. And hopefully she reciprocates where she's dying to herself and living for you. And that's what makes an incredible marriage, where both of your needs can now get met. Both of your needs and ideally your wants can be met. So you have to get clear, hey, what do I need to start sacrificing? What pleasures, what selfishness do I need to start putting aside? And also what helps me is realizing how temporal relationships can be. Meaning the divorce rate is well over 50%. So the likelihood of staying together forever is very unlikely. So knowing that, how do you continue? Don't get comfortable. Don't go on cruise control, because at some point she may say, hey, I really want the love and attention from someone else. And so that kind of fear, that keeps me on my A game.
For sure.
Realizing that at some point, if I don't show up, my wife could leave. Someone else could sweep her off her feet, show her so much more love and attention and care, and she could accidentally fall in love. And so dude, I'm going to do my best work with her. I'm going to make sure I'm giving it my all, because I want to give the best shot to making sure the marriage is successful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Now I've been missing it, right? That's where I've been missing it is just being selfish, I think, is the root cause. Wanting more for me and, wanting more out of her for me and not giving all of myself. So.
Yeah, I was talking with a coaching client yesterday, and they realized that they thought their wife was the issue, to the point where the guy was actually willing to leave the marriage. He thought, hey, I've done everything I could in my marriage. Yet, he actually came through our event. He had a major aha that it's actually up to him to shift the whole marriage. It's not up to his wife to shift the marriage or do anything different. It's 100% up to him to start showing up differently and start showing her love despite how she shows up. And so he started leaning in hard, totally leaning in. And he said their marriage has been better than it has their entire marriage.
That's awesome.
Totally transformed the marriage by him leaning in and giving all of himself. And when she's difficult to be around, when she makes comments that are jabs, he gives her grace. And then she comes back minutes later and says, hey, I'm sorry. I mean, it completely shifted everything. So yeah, it's all up to us, man. We have to be the one to shift the relationship.
We're in the driver's seat.
100%. Right. And so if you take that level of responsibility, you're not a victim to the marriage anymore. Now you realize like you're the one that produces the results. And so you take it all off her and it's all on you. And it's a beautiful thing. And then if it feels like a burden, we hand that to Christ. Say, Lord, this is hard, and I'm going to hand it off to you, and I'm going to start leaning into you more to give me the power and the courage and the discipline necessary to love my wife the way she deserves to be loved as your child.
It's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. Well, man, hopefully that was valuable.
It was great. Thanks, Skylar. I appreciate you too.
So if you're enjoying this content, make sure you like, subscribe, and share, and leave a comment if you want me to do more of this Q&A, because I know that it could be valuable, but I want your feedback.